everyone. Just to preface this review, I wanted to say that this book really helps me look at myself objectively and see how I was perpetuating attitudes and I don't know, forms of oppression that I don't agree with. So I really appreciated that objective look at myself. So if you're into changing yourself and seeing yourself through different eyes, um, this book is probably for you. I really, really appreciated that. So yeah, I'm gonna get into my review of it. Obviously, I wrote a great deal, so bear with me. Dykes-Loving-Dykes by Bev Jo, Linda Strega, and Rustin. This book is about the dynamics between lesbians that have been forged by our various backgrounds and experiences. All three authors come from different backgrounds, religious, regional, and even national in the case of Rustin. It is written from the lesbian separatist perspective. They make it clear that the book is intended for lesbians only. I think they've revised this a bit because Bev Jo does have the book available on her blog. So, I mean, you don't have to be a lesbian to read the material, but you probably should be a lesbian. They are very committed to keeping these boundaries, explaining how lesbians are denied access to much of the world's resources, as well as being unable to act in accord with our truest selves, even in mixed communities and even in feminist communities. Because so many women came out from being involved in feminism, the lesbian community was dealing with a mass entrance of their previous oppressors. These women, though they made the right choice to open their hearts to women and cease collaborating with men, still brought many damaging attitudes about lesbians, which alienated many women who'd been out before feminism. Instead of valuing these women's strength and courage to be out before there was much support, many newly out lesbian feminists excluded them from lesbian communities. This book helped me see how I'd done the same. Obviously, the dynamics are different now, but there's definitely a difference of attitude between a woman who comes out because of a feminist consciousness and a woman who's out just because she always loves women. And it seems like women who come out from their feminist consciousness or whatever, they think they're better than other lesbians. Or they think that their lesbianism is more special or some crap. And it's not, we're all lesbians, we're all here, we all love women, and it doesn't matter why. We should just love one another. But so often we don't. It's not all critical. They make sure to mention lesbian communities and collectives that have excellent politics, and that's really cool. They make an effort to praise where they see things going right. Some ideas that were new to me reading this book were things like their definition of butch and femme. They make the distinction of butch females being those who have always resisted feminization, and because of this, they're viewed with a lot of scorn and mistrust by many femme women, as well as the male population generally. And then they make the distinction that femme women are pretty much women who did not resist feminization, but embraced it. And they could later reject it, but still they had embraced it at some point, or been feminized. So there is a difference in the behavior and attitudes of women, even if they go on to reject it. And I think it's important that they make that distinction. So a woman like me is a femme. Now, I kind of don't want to get into my own gender dynamics really, but it was important to me to see that from their perspective, I was a femme and I had femme privilege, and I needed to think about how I could be an ally to butch women. So I really appreciate that. It was okay, one of the main ways is you can begin to reject your feminization. The more women who do that, the easier it becomes for butch women to exist in the world, The book centers butch voices and political analysis. And they make it clear that one does not simply become butch, it's a way of being. And I like that they talked about how many feminists project masculinity onto butch women when that's just a reversal of reality. Women who are caught up in playing femininity are the ones that are male identified and masculine acting. You know, that's femininity is male. It is not female behavior. Um, this book calls on women to give up their male identified behaviors and ways of thinking. It is women's attachment to their male heterosexual or heterosexist identities, I should say, that causes so much strife between women. Most lesbians, still maintain their male identities, and it's really a problem. They focus, this book is female, and they make it clear that they focus specifically on women because women matter and women are capable of changing and doing better. I love that. I never read a book that was so female focused and like so focused on like feminism. It was interesting. So much of feminism is heterocentric. Even though many lesbians are feminists, they spend their time focusing on hetero women's issues. Lesbians are always expected to come last in everything. We're expected to accept without question heterosexual women's dominance. Even ex-het lesbians bring much of the same domineering, superior behaviors to lesbian communities when they come out. This book looks at why. At the center of much of this is the belief that lesbians are not real women, or if we are some kind of aberration or freaks. And yeah, the attitude is very much there even amongst women who've come out from feminism. Like I said again, that, oh, I'm different. I'm special. It's like, no, you're not. You're a freak too. In this book, they reject the excuses often made by women for selling out. They remind us to remember our childhoods, which I love this. How we all loved other females and hated boys, and how we had deep passions for one another. It's amazing to me how many heterosexual women seem to block this out. And I think maybe they do it because it's painful for them to look at themselves objectively and see how co-opted and brainwashed they were at early ages to, sell out their sisters. But you did. And we need to acknowledge that this happens, and we need to make steps to repair that. You may not be able to repair it with the women that you did this to. I know I've not been able to, with a lot of the girlfriends I had specifically, but I can make an effort to not behave that way now and to put women first. It asks that each of us take a hard look at how we are privileged at the expense of other women and to strive for equality in our communities despite our differences. This book is controversial, although I found little I could disagree with in it. And off the top of my head, I can't really right now. They take on the sacred cow of motherhood, exposing it for the con it is, while also strongly making the case that women, especially feminists, especially lesbian feminists, should not be breeding. Apart from the strain on the planet that producing more Western consumers will place in competition for future resources, the act of mothering is male identified. It perpetuates patriarchy by creating its future predators and their victims. Lesbians who conceive through in vitro fertilization are also far more likely to produce male children, who will then go on to oppress women and girls, as well as inherit lesbian resources, which should be going to the lesbian community. The act of imitating the heterosexual nuclear family unit isolates lesbians from one another, which makes resistance impossible. In the early days of separatism, many women gave up their children because their commitment to feminist revolution was so strong. This seemed to get flipped in the 80s, and the lesbian baby boom went in full swing. And the reason for this is motherhood confers a level of normalcy upon lesbians, makes us less threatening and less queer. For many lesbians, having children will raise their status in their families and communities, so it is an attractive idea. The problem is that making this choice leads to further separation from other women. In Dykes-Loving-Dykes, they discuss how mothers treat child-free women, often even talking to us like they do to naughty children when they disagree, you know? Um, and, you know, in the past week, because of, like, my own, like, lack of esteem for motherhood, I've been quite heavily trashed by some feminists, and you know, I'm used to being trashed. It's like it just rolls off my back now. But like the level of like the superiority that women who are completely like barefoot and uneducated like can come at you with, like just because they've bred, is just, it's amazing. Like how they'll talk to you. You know, you'll even have women who you never even heard of being like, "You need to apologize to me." I'm like, who the fuck are you? Why are you important? Oh, you pushed a baby out. Okay, yeah, all right. I totally reject this idea that we should put mothers in higher esteem than non-mothers. Oh, I don't even like the term non-mother, which they use in the book. Child-free, okay? I'm not a non-mother. I'm not identified in any way by my lack of children, or, you know, or my lack of motherhood. I love that they go into it. They really go into that. And I'm gonna get carried away with that because this issue really does piss me off. They make it clear that choosing motherhood is making a male-identified choice, while choosing not to breed is a woman-identified one. They tackle the issue of women's own collaboration with patriarchy, which many feminists either ignore or deny even happens. I felt very moved by how much the book argues for the rights and lives of girl children. Girlhood is a traumatic experience, and as feminists, we must center the rights and safety of girls above all else, as they still have few legal rights, you know. The book discusses how family relations are oppressive for women, the absurdity of so many women helping and wishing to be accepted by their families, which brutalize them. Again, it calls on us to build and create sustainable lesbian communities which foster women not giving into oppressive family dynamics. It calls for us to invest in one another for once, you know, and it asks us to, you know, invest our time, our hearts, and our resources in one another, which is not being done. They tackle issues like racism, classism, looksism, fat oppression, ethnicism, anti-Semitism. I could go on. They constantly refer back to multiple oppressions lesbians can be facing, and how keeping these in our consciousness creates stronger bonds and relationships. The main focus is always to be improving ourselves. It was very different than many feminist works I've read in that it does not focus on men or what they do. It's stated very clearly that lesbian separatists do not believe or care if men can change. Their lives are dedicated solely to lesbians. They also make it very clear that it is not up to lesbians to work to free heterosexual women who make the choice to collaborate with men. We must put our hearts and time and energy into supporting those who resist, you know, instead of trying to free those who are making a conscious choice. We have the least and no one else will focus on us. It's a great book, and it makes no excuses for saying what is true and what is needed to be said. Because of this, Dykes-Loving-Dykes is controversial, as I've already said. There are so few lesbian feminists willing to dedicate themselves fully to other lesbians and commit themselves to full equality in our movements and spaces. I've watched many women cherry pick quotes from the book and call them hateful or misogynistic when everything contained therein is true. I remember one woman like quoting that passage about how mothers are often bitter and like resentful because, you know, and that was supposed to be misogynistic when everyone who's met mothers knows this is fucking true. Like, why is that misogyny? Like, why? That's like saying like that women who experience other like things in life. I don't know. Let's see. That's like saying that, I don't know, white women are often arrogant. Like, is that misogynistic? No, it's true. It's true. So like, I don't know. It's amazing to me. It really, reading this book and like seeing the reactions to it really helps me solidify in my mind, you know, women who are all talk and women who are about like real action and doing the real work of changing themselves. I mean, that is clear. So I mean, I think read this book for that, if nothing else. I hope others will now either get a copy, sit down and read it, or go through Bev Jo's blog, which I will link to in the description box. She's got like the updated chapters there. I mean, she's put this out on her blog so that anyone can read it because it's so important. And she's updated a lot of the chapters with new information and like stuff like that because this book was written a while ago. So yeah, anyway, I hope you look at this book and, really look at yourself while reading it too. It's been very disheartening to me to see just how many women get involved in feminism, not because they want revolution, like I did, but because they want, I don't know, therapy, or they want like a pity party, or they want like to feel, I don't know. It's amazing to me how many women use feminist language to justify their own like continual bad choices. And I don't agree with that, and I don't think it's okay, and I definitely don't support it. So, I mean, like, it's one thing to it's one thing to like seek out help and resources and like use your feminist community for that, but it's another thing for that all to be all you're doing and to be all you're invested in. Like, that's a problem. Like, for me personally, I thought we wanted to change the world. I thought we wanted to like create a different world for, future generation of women and girls. And if we can't change ourselves, if we can't commit ourselves to like truly loving and being committed to one another, then, well, what's the point? Then I'm just, I don't know. I guess we all just have to eke out our own little survival space, And that's really sad because we could do so much more. So yeah, definitely read this book. I recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars from Terry Strange.